We begin with breaking news about the quake in Myanmar and tremors being felt in Bangkok. Strong tremors have been felt in Bangkok. In fact, chaos has also erupted as buildings have collapsed. Take a look at those visuals on your screens at this point. We're learning that the Thai PM has declared emergency. In fact, in connection with this, the Prime Minister has expressed concern over the Myanmar quakes, praying for everyone's safety. The Prime Minister has said that India is available to offer all possible assistance that is required. This has taken place just over an hour ago, where the first initial quake was reported on the Richter scale at a magnitude of between 7.2 to 7.7. 12 minutes later, there was an aftershock, the first aftershock after that regional earthquake, which was reported at about 6.4 on the magnitude on the Richter scale. Then beyond that, minutes later, was the third aftershock. Essentially, that was at a 5.0 on the Richter scale. That was the magnitude. We're crossing on to my colleague Himanshu to bring us more details on what exactly is taking place at this point. Himanshu, it's just been moments, about over an hour since the earthquakes were the alerts had first come in of those earthquakes. There have been multiple aftershocks since then. One was a 6.4, one was a 5.0. We're learning that a state of emergency has been declared in Bangkok. That is what the Thai PM has said. Beyond this, Narendra Modi, the Indian Prime Minister, has said that India is available to offer all possible assistance.
Oh, absolutely, Aisha. I mean, this is a massive, massive disaster, and the kind of pictures that you're witnessing, particularly from Bangkok, because the quake, the intensity of it, as we can see, has absolutely jolted Thailand. I mean, you can see skyscrapers falling off like a pack of cards. We are seeing heavy bridges, these mega structures absolutely collapsing. We spoke about India. India does have a very high tradition, Aisha, of being the first responder whenever a calamity has happened in the wider SAARC region, be it the Pakistan earthquakes way back in 2005, the Nepal quakes, or the cyclones in Bangladesh. India has been the elder brother which has always stepped in for the neighborhood in times of need, even at the cost of whatever challenges it might be facing on its own end. And as we know, it's not just Thailand and Myanmar, the epicenter, the ground zero of it, but the northeastern parts of the country which are rattled. We are getting reports that obviously strong tremors were felt in Manipur, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim. We do not know what have been the damages. Fortunately, till now, there have not been any reports of casualties or fatalities. As far as the Indian side of that border is concerned, we are fearing for the worst, but hoping for the best. Fingers across. However, we talk about the implications that we're already witnessing. Thailand seems to be very, very badly hit, as is often seen that it is not just the epicenter or the area near the epicenter, as is the case with this quake, because we will assume that Mandalay, Sagang, Naypyidaw, the Myanmar capital and the major cities would be the worst hit. It is actually regions far away, hundreds of kilometers away, where actually the line or the tectonic line, tectonic plate, the way it moves is what causes the maximum damage. And as we're seeing on our screens, Aisha, Thailand seems to have taken a really, really big hit. We knew that the public transport had been halted for a while, but the Thai PM has already declared a state of emergency. Clearly, they are bracing for the worst. Search and rescue operations have been launched. The first attempts will be to pull out people wherever they are under debris or piles of rubble, but it is definitely one of the biggest disasters to have happened in South Asia in a long, long while. After the Nepal quake, this is definitely one of the biggest, and prayers for all those who are struck.
Considering at this point, Himanshu, we don't really know about any toll at this point, fortunately, because, again, everybody is still assessing the situation. Rescue teams at this point are still mobilizing. As you mentioned, the rescue and relief operations have begun. There are already initial reports about tens of people, I believe some workers, about 40 workers, are stuck in a building in Bangkok itself. So that's one area that has been identified to have a problem after the earthquake. But at this point, there are no initial details that have come out as far as any casualties or injuries are concerned. It's still too early to know, too early to tell. This has just occurred a little bit over an hour ago, with the first earthquake being at a 7.2, between a 7.7 as well. But the aftershocks are continuing. Himanshu, as far as aftershocks are concerned, Put this into context for us, because as we just mentioned, the first earthquake, the original earthquake, was at a 7.2 to 7.7 as reported by the USGS. Now, following that, 12 minutes later, you had the first aftershock at a 6.4. Later on, minutes later, you had the second aftershock at a 5.0. What can be expected in the hours ahead now?
Asha, as you very rightly pointed out, aftershocks are going to be a big concern because a quake of this magnitude invariably does tend to rupture the fault lines. We have known in the past that Asiatic plate, which is being moving rapidly, is a fragile area, and the India-Myanmar border is known to be a hot seismic zone. Now, having already witnessed two aftershocks, the biggest challenge, as we have also discussed earlier during our programming, that the biggest challenge for the government agencies, authorities, will be to launch full-scale operations while bracing for those aftershocks, because with a quake of this magnitude, multiple aftershocks are being anticipated, and that too not just today, maybe over the next few days, at least 72 to 96 hours, and that will pose a big challenge, because once those fault lines do get ruptured and all that energy is being released, which is actually, to put in perspective, equal to many kilotons. It's kind of a nuclear energy that gets unleashed and released. And the quake itself was so shallow, Aisha, barely 10 kilometers. And that actually poses a severe risk of many, many aftershocks, which could be of very high intensity, maybe not 7, but we have already seen one aftershock of 6.4. And similar aftershocks can actually rattle the region once again, posing a double challenge for all the agencies who are already on the ground trying to rescue and reach out to the people who are stranded. So aftershocks will be a major area of concern, Aisha.
Absolutely. Himanshu, just in connection with that, we do have one confirmed report at this point. It's not exactly what we were talking about in terms of the toll, because that is something that's not known at this point and will take a few hours for the picture to get clearer. But at this point, what we are learning is that one has been declared dead. This is in Bangkok after a building has collapsed. What kind of devastation do you think we're going to be seeing, considering that this is a 7.7 earthquake that's been reported by the USGS?
Aisha, as we've been discussing all along, a 7.7 earthquake is extremely, extremely powerful. It has the ability to actually, ground an entire city. And what we are witnessing from Bangkok, preliminary information and some initial pictures, but we should be bracing for the worst, Aisha, because the kind of devastation and a quake so powerful can cause is hard to fathom. I mean, what we have seen in the past, be it Nepal, what we've seen in Turkey, what we've seen in Japan in 2011, such quakes leave behind a massive, massive trail of destruction. The entire cities, they collapse the ground. Public infra takes a massive, massive hit. And in fact, in Turkey, and unfortunately, that earthquake happened in the middle of the night when most people were sleeping. They were not out on the streets or at work, as is the case with this quake. And you could see entire apartment blocks collapsing within seconds, like in a heap, like a sack or a pack of cards. And that is why everybody is right now hoping for the best, but really fearing the worst, because the toll could be really, really high in this quake, and it can rise rapidly. As of now, I mean, I'm sure the agencies themselves are grappling with what their plan of action should be as to what are the areas that are worst hit, what are the initial reports coming, and they'll have to tackle it accordingly. But given the scale of this entire quake, the toll could rise rapidly and surge into 3 figures or 4 figures in no time, Aisha.
Absolutely. Himanshu, thank you so much for joining us and getting us more details. We're going to continue to track the developments. This is a story that's going to continue to develop, a situation that's going to continue to develop over the next few hours, considering that this has just been reported a little bit over an hour ago. We'll continue to track the developments. At this point, initial rescue operations are underway. Essentially, everybody is still at the point where they're assessing what the on-ground situation is. Now, we'll continue to track the developments, but shifting focus now.